I'm here with Nick Klein. I just kind of want to walk through his Contender Series bout. Had a crazy sub-minute submission in the Contender Series. Is crazy. Going in as a betting underdog also. That's wild, man. Can you kind of walk me through your experience with the Contender Series and kind of tell me how you got there?
Yeah, so a teammate of mine, Wesley, um, who fought I think like on the first week of contenders, um, lost in the second round. They called him back to fight on the last episode. A week before that fight, we were at our sparring practice that Saturday. And Wesley had gotten injured, and I was just finishing up an 8 week camp for a 1-0 guy in Davenport, Iowa. Um, and as soon as we figured out that Wesley was, it was just a better decision not to take the fight. I looked right at my coach and I'm like, dude, like, put me in, And so we called our management, and they said they do their best, to push my name into place. But ultimately, like Mick and Dana and stuff, kind of have, they had their eye on maybe a couple other guys, and so Saturday went by, Sunday went by. I didn't hear anything. Monday morning, I was told that they found another guy who was I think like another Brazilian guy or something who had just advanced to 6-0, and that they were going to go with him. And that didn't change anything for me really, anyways, because I was still just planning on fighting in Iowa that coming Saturday.
Mhm.
This was on Monday. So later that day, my phone had died, and my kids were upstairs eating food, and then I came downstairs quick to plug my phone in and put some laundry away, and my phone lit up, and it was my coach Jake telling me to call him.
Okay.
And like I immediately had a hunch because he never tells me to call him. So I called him, and they're like, dude, that guy can't get a visa in time, you're in. And I'm like, holy shit. Um, yeah, yelled out, fuck yeah, pretty loud. And then my family came downstairs wondering if everything was okay. And I'm like, yeah, everything's great, but I'm probably leaving on a plane tomorrow. And so sure enough, I flew into Vegas on Tuesday night with my coach Zach. We went through all the media, all the medicals and stuff. Started my weight cut on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Made weight Monday morning, and went on contenders and did what I do. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of walk me through your training process going up into it.
yeah. So I was already preparing for like a tall, lanky striker for the past 8 weeks. Like I said, I found out I got the fight on Monday. I was fighting him that following Tuesday, so I had about 8 days to prepare. Really didn't do anything out of the normal, man. I didn't watch any film on him. I didn't want to. I didn't want to put myself in a headspace of like thinking that I was fighting this big monster and stuff, and then getting nervous about it, because I do that going into fights. I'll watch film and then go through this roller coaster of emotions and overanalyze every single thing I see them doing. And I'm like, you know what? For this one on short notice, like I have nothing to lose.
For
Even
sure.
if I do go out there and get clipped or something, I'll pick up one or two more wins over the summer, and they'll bring me back next year. I know I have a good character and a good look to be marketable in the UFC. It's just a matter of, being able to prove that I have the skill set to stay. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Dude, if I'm being honest, like the one thing I looked at, I watched your post-fight interviews that you did with, the Associated MMA Press at the end, and dude, you were so eager to get back in there. And it's wild to me. You were like, okay, if Fluffy and Pereira falls through, you're like, well, put me in there. Like I do not
Yeah,
care. Like I want that fight no matter what. I think that really
yeah.
stood out to me, and I'm sure it stood out to a lot of people because it shows that you want to be there more than anything.
Yeah, well, 100%, 100%. And I mean, honestly, like after a match like I had, I mean, dude, I was unscathed. I didn't even
Yeah.
get touched. He didn't land a punch on me. It was like 37 seconds. Like I was breathing harder warming up in the back than I was during the fight. And I'm not taking anything from Souza neither. He's a tough
Yeah.
competitor. I'm sure he'll make it back to the UFC. I hope he does.
I mean, he was
I,
going into that fight undefeated. I mean, literally. I mean, that guy had the world on his shoulders. I don't know if you maybe looked past you or anything like that, but I
yeah,
mean, short notice. Like I said, I don't know what he was thinking, but
Yeah, yeah, I
um,
don't know. I ultimately I hope he keeps winning. I
yeah,
want everyone that I compete with to keep getting wins, whether I win or lose to them, because that only makes my stock rise.
yeah,
So I hope
for
he goes back
sure.
to Brazil, dude, and keeps wrecking house and makes his way back to the UFC.
Yeah,
You
dude.
know, um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I made him look way easier than he actually is. Um,
yeah.
I think if me and him fought, 10 times, I think I got I hit the 1 in a million choke. I did feel because I sent out a push kick the second he tried to close on me, and I kind of felt how much it moved his body. Um, and then I like kind of I went for it. Even that takedown entry that I had on him wasn't very clean. It didn't look, that wasn't an NCAA shot. I kind of just went underneath his
Hmm.
punches and grabbed his leg, and he fell down kind of easy. And I felt like I would be able to manhandle him if I really needed to, and I think that was what gave me confidence to really cling on to that choke. Um,
Yeah,
but like I said, man, if we fought 10 times, who knows how it goes? Who knows how many
for sure.
times I land that choke? I don't think it's easy to just go out there and choke any black belt out, whether they're Heraldo Souza or lower skilled yet. If you
I
if you
guess you.
have a jiu-jitsu black belt, you've put at least 8 to 10 years into the sport learning how to
Mhm.
defend that kind of stuff. So that is one thing that I've kind of questioned myself on since the win is like, am I that good or is he that bad, or is he are we both really good and I got lucky.
I mean,
um
that dude's
I
a
don't know.
Brazilian black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Brazil.
Yeah,
You went in there, subbed him in under a minute. I
yeah,
can say pretty confidently you're good, you know?
yeah. But it all happened so fast, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
the second I got the choke and Herb Dean stops the fight, like there was so many aspects to that entire experience that made it so surreal, right?
Yeah.
First was like I'm standing in front of Herb Dean, who I've watched on TV since I was like 9. It's my first time in the cage with him. That was crazy. And then I go out and I see Dana and Mick and Sean all sitting cage side. I've watched them at UFC events on TV for years, and it's like all of a sudden all of this stuff is right in front of me, and it was almost too surreal for me to even be nervous about it. Like my biggest fear going into that cage was being boring. I would have rather gotten knocked out and had an exciting fight for everybody to see than to have won a boring decision, because some of my past fights are a little stagnant and there's not as much action as you'd like, in some film that you watch of me.
Mhm.
And I think ultimately going forward, that's going to be something I really need to work on, is to make sure that I can be exciting and win. But as soon as I got my hand raised, dude, I'm like, there's no way this is real. Like I'm about to wake up and it's fight day or something. Like
Okay.
I just had a dream that I wiped this guy out.
Yeah.
And I haven't woken up yet. So
Can you kind of walk me through the finish? Because I mean, I'm watching you get onto his back, and like when you're listening to the commentators, they're like, "This is crazy! Like, what is going on?" Like, people they're freaking out. If you listen to Laura Sanko, she freaks out. She's like, "It's in, it's in, it's in." You didn't have your hooks in, but you grabbed
yeah,
the neck so fast, and
yeah,
the way you were pulling on it, I mean, he looked like he was panicking bad.
yeah.
So, kind of walk me through it.
So there's a lot of times when I'm training and stuff, obviously you wanna commit to your back take and stuff and have your hooks set before you go for the choke. Um, Initially I was kind of just using getting around his neck and kind of getting like a seatbelt grip around him, and I was going to use that to get my hooks in. And as I had put my arm around, I had felt that his chin was still up, and so the second I felt that there was space between his chin and his collarbone area, I slid the choke all the way in. um, and he defended really well. He immediately tucked his chin. um, and so I think it must have been right before he rolled or something, because I know he hit like a somersault or something, and I had enough of a grip at that point that I'm like, I'll just roll with you. Um, but once he tucked his chin, I I could I could tell he knew, like obviously he was in danger, and
Yeah.
I had it pretty tight already, but I wasn't. Once he had got his chin under, I'm not closing off his airways, so I had switched up to that short choke where I
Yeah.
kind of shallowed my grip and I just kind of used my forearm to pry back underneath his chin. Um, and once I had felt that I got underneath his chin, the biggest thing was just locking my hands and
Yeah.
making sure that I kept myself as tight to the back of his head as possible. Because obviously, if I'm not glued to the back of his head, he can obviously pull his head back and
Yeah.
leave that pressure. But that first deep RNC that I was on, that was more of a blood choke. That'll put you out
Yeah.
in like 8 to 10 seconds.
Dude, that
Once
thing was
I
tight
locked up.
itself
Yeah,
too. I mean,
yeah. But what I had switched up to was more of like a trachea crush,
okay.
and that will cut your airway off, and it's way more painful. It takes longer to pass out, but I mean, I think it'd be fair to say that with the pressure that I can put in on the on the neck like that, he was probably worried about getting his windpipe crushed. I mean, you could see he was red in the face, and it looked like his eyes were ready to pop out of his head. Um, Clearly it was it was causing some discomfort.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I like looking back to it. It all happened so fast. It's
Hmm.
crazy to
Yeah.
see that folded that
Also
way.
tell me how it feels at the end of it. So, do you feel that tap when he taps right away? Do you feel that? And like, are you just so caught up in the moment? You're like, holy, like,
Yeah, so I made the mistake one time of it was actually the fight before this one. I had the choke in. The guy tapped. I let go, and the ref didn't see that he had tapped. Um,
okay.
Now this all happened in like a matter of like a second and a half. So I like quickly I released my grip, but I didn't release the choke.
Yeah.
Um, he had tapped. I released the grip. The ref didn't stop it, and I'm like, holy shit! Like that could have cost me a lot, and
Yeah.
if the stakes were way higher. And so I put it back in right away, and obviously choked him again. And then the ref had seen he tapped again, and the ref had seen it. Um,
And
but
you're,
yeah,
yeah.
so but yeah, so obviously I readjusted my grip for this guy and sunk that choke in. And the second I had the hooks in on him, I knew it was kind of a wrap. But I wasn't going to let go until Herb Dean put his hands on me to stop. Especially in that kind of situation where the stakes are so high. Both me and him are competing for a dream that we've worked for years. So I'm not letting go of anything or going to quit hitting anybody until the ref is between me and him. So, but I felt this tap immediately, but I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't going to let it go until Herb told me to. Like I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to watch live, especially with you being the underdog and,
Yeah, yeah,
the,
it's kind of taken off on like ESPN and stuff a little
yeah,
bit. There's a lot of views on that right now.
seen it. Yeah, for sure. I'm always looking at that stuff.
I've never been that like prevalent on like any sort of reel or clip on social media ever. So it's kind of crazy to see a clip of me on ESPN with like 300, however many thousand views. It's wild to me.
Yeah, let's actually move into you walking up to Dana, cage side and being like, "Hey, John Jones is the greatest alive." There's no lie to that. Dude, talk to me about your thought process of that, because I mean
Yeah,
that's obviously a meme, right?
yeah,
Everybody makes fun of Dana because he loves John Jones a little bit more than the average fighter, and there's nothing,
yeah.
that guy's the best
Um,
of all time in my opinion too. But
so nobody actually heard what I said before that. The first thing I did was point at him and say, "We'll be in touch."
okay,
I just felt like that was a good way of stamping my performance,
for sure.
and just letting him know that like you and me both know I belong here, in a respectful way, obviously.
Yeah,
Um, Throughout the week, I was telling my coach Zach Otto, I'm like, dude, I think like if I get a good finish over this guy, I'm gonna add John Jones is the greatest fucking fighter to ever walk this earth. Not only because I believe it,
uh-huh.
John Jones is the GOAT in my book. I agree with Dana on that. But I'd also seen Dana like kind of play with it a little bit himself. Like he had signed off some of his
Dude, I
own social
love it.
media that way. And I
Yeah,
thought it was fucking hilarious. I love that because like people keep trying to argue him on it, and he's not going to give any ground. He'll
yeah,
stand his ground on whatever he believes, and I like that too. And so when I kind of talked about it with my coaches. I'm like, I think I'm gonna say that, and they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, dude, nobody's done it. Like that's gonna be an original
yeah.
quote there.
Dude, that
Uh,
clip got a lot by itself too.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
I was looking
nobody,
at your personal one. I mean, there's a bunch of views on that, and I think
yeah,
I think Iridium may have posted it too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was hilarious, man.
So I think it was Mick Maynard was sitting on Dana's right side. Um, it looked like Nick busted out laughing, and then Dana was obviously like, I agree with you, and it felt good. I kind of just wanted to stick the landing of the fight a little bit, and
Sure,
just say something a little bit not out of the box, but just do something a little bit original. Make sure they remember me, and it
you
seems
did.
to seems to have paid off.
Okay. Another story I saw, I thought it was really, really funny to me. So, you had your purple belt and you were telling your coach, you were like, hey, if I win this, I need another stripe. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
ended up giving you a brown belt, dude. And
yeah,
walk me through that because I mean, I will be honest, giving belts in MMA matches is kind of hard to watch because, you'll see a guy knock another guy out.
yeah.
But, this was well deserved. Kind of walk me through that. What was the emotion going through that?
Yeah, it was honestly the last thing I expected because my coaches are really good at keeping me in check. They want to make sure I don't get too big of a head and that I just stay humble and keep training, right? And that's what I want. I want to be surrounded by a group of people who want the best for me and make sure that I'm staying between the lines. Um, I don't like when people try to gas me or my skills or anything of that matter. I just want to stay true to myself and keep doing what I've been doing and do what got me there. So it was funny when I had initially said that to my coaches. I'm like, if I sub him, you got to give me a stripe on my purple belt. And he looked at me and he's, we don't have to do shit. And it made me laugh. And so I kind of that was like the last I'd even thought of it. I didn't put any more thought into it at all. I'm
Yeah.
like, if I sub him, I sub him. Jake and Zach are right. They don't have to do shit. It's fine. And I hadn't trained in my gi in a while anyways, so it was fine. It was completely put out of my mind, right? And then I go out and I get a submission the way I did over them. And then obviously after I find out I've been, that they're gonna take me, I walk over and they hand me that brown belt.
Oh,
Um,
they
it,
knew.
yeah, it was
They
super.
knew, man.
So obviously it was like a double whammy that night, right? Like I got in, I got a win. I got into the UFC and they gave me my brown belt. I actually show you right here. I got my
Oh, dude.
my blue, and then I've got my purple hanging there now too.
Yeah.
Um, But I asked my coach, where the hell did you get that from? And so we're out in Vegas, right? And I'm signed to Iridium, and so that's where my management agency is actually based out of, and where a lot of
Yeah.
those guys are. And so my coach Jake, the way he had explained it to me, he's like, I was thinking about it before we got to the P or before we got to the Apex, and I'm like, just in case. I reached out to Jacob, who's from our Iridium management team, and I'm like, is there any way you can have a brown belt on standby just in case he gets a good submission? And they had messaged Jake back, and they're like, "Yep, we'll figure something out." And lo and behold, one of the Iridium members showed up with a brown belt, and then I go out and I submit that guy the way I did, and yeah, it was yeah,
People
still a
don't
lot.
understand how hard it is to get a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu either. I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I was a for me my belt rank has gone a little bit different. So I was a white belt actually for like 3 years, and I trained in the gi a lot, and I still only had like three stripes on it. Um, and then I got my blue belt, and I was a blue belt for 2 years. Never went to any promotions or anything. Um, I and then I and tested for my purple belt without a single stripe on my blue belt.
mhm.
Um, and then I've got to be going on at least 2 or 3 years now with the purple belt, which I had two stripes on. So all in all, I mean, I've been doing this, and I said on the show too, consistently for about 8 years, training jujitsu and MMA and boxing and really the whole nine. And so when I look at it, it's like, part of me thought like, oh, is it too soon that they gave me my brown? And then I look at like, I added up the hours, dude, of like training that I've put in and just staying committed to it too, and it's like at 8 years, I think it was well deserved, especially after a performance like that. But yeah, it's super cool to have, man. A
Okay,
good mark, a
so
good marker of my time and commitment in the
yeah,
sport.
dude, that's awesome. Uh, so I kind of want to pivot one more thing. You're a family man, of course.
Yeah,
You have four kids, if I'm not mistaken.
I have three. Three. I have
Three,
two.
excuse me.
Yeah, I've got two older daughters and one
Okay.
son.
I think they showed one of your daughters on the broadcast, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
I lost it.
wearing your.
That was my oldest, Raven.
Yeah.
I seen her wearing that shirt, dude, because I didn't know that they were actually going to be watching it. So mom came out to see me, and the kids stayed with her mom, or well, her mom came to our house and watched the kids while
Yeah.
she came out to Vegas to see. And the last thing I had talked to DeVito about was that's who mom is. I just call her mama because I'm always around
Yeah.
the kids. And if I call her DeVita, then the kids call her DeVita. Um, but so I told mama, I'm like, I don't know that I want the kids to see this until maybe after, I don't want them to see their, because you never know what's going to happen when you go out there, dude. Maybe
Yeah.
Geraldo in another dimension, dude, Geraldo throws an overhand and flatlines me in front of everybody, and it's like, I don't want my kids to see something that traumatic. So to my knowledge, they weren't even watching while everything was down. And I got to talking to Laura and stuff about him, which was another surreal part of just the entire experience, right? I've watched Laura give interviews to everybody for years,
Yeah.
and now sudden in the snap of a fingers. 8 days ago, I wasn't fighting any. I was preparing to go fight in Iowa, and now I just choked this dude out in front of Dana, and I'm standing in front of Laura Sanko, and kind of had referenced my daughters and my son and my family and stuff, and then Laura has me look at like the projector screen. There's a screen in front of us, and then I see Raven there just waving,
Oh man.
and like, dude, I had to let some tears go, man. I couldn't believe
No,
it.
for sure. I mean,
So
you have to, man. That's such a big moment, and I mean, that's such a I feel like MMA needs more of that.
yeah,
It's just the family aspect, and
yeah,
showing that it's okay to be emotional and okay to
yeah.
you know
I was nothing but myself on camera, man. I mean,
yeah
how you see me there is how I always act. So my biggest fear was like potentially making an ass of myself, and I don't think that happens. So it was a win. If I got to cry on TV to not make an ass of myself, I guess that's what I guess that's what's
yeah.
going. So, but I was really happy to see that Raven was there watching and that she got to see Dad get another win.
So I cover a lot of amateur sports in my channel, a lot of amateur MMA and boxing and Muay Thai and all that. Kind of walk me through your amateur career because I mean it really is a stepping stone to going pro to getting you to where you are now. Kind of walk me through your amateur career. I just want to hear it, and if there are any like promotions that really set you up in the amateurs.
Mm, yeah. So my first ever fight was on King of the Cage on an Indian reservation with unified rules. So you could knee and elbow to the head. This is my first time ever fighting. I had trained for about a year before I took a fight. At the time, I was training out of a small gym in Sheboygan that really helped get my feet wet, and just get an understanding for what the game was. Um, I'd probably been training about. Oop, garbage fell over.
It's
I'd
like,
probably I'd probably been training for about 8 or 9 months. By the time the coach there was like, "Hey, King of the Cage is coming to Menominee Casino up in Kashina, and if you want to fight, I think you're ready for it." There was two other guys that had fought there too, at the gym that I was at, and he goes, "I think we'll get you and Steve and Connor ready for a fight." And I'm like, "Sounds great. I'm all for it." Um, so I go to King of the Cage, super nervous, right? Like this is my first time ever cutting to 185. I did it in a steam room with one of my buddies. I'd wrestled in high school and stuff, but that was at 195. So, and I kind of walked around at like 198. So I maybe didn't eat lunch, and took a good piss, and I made 195. Um, but this was totally different. There was a whole nother 10 pounds I had to lose. Ended up getting down to weight. Fight night comes along, and the first guy who goes out, into the cage just takes this savage fucking beating, dude. And I'm watching on the screen in the back, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? You
yeah,
just incredibly nervous because of the fear of the unknown. You don't know what you're gonna get into. I went out there, hip tossed the guy, TKO'd him in like a minute and a half, and
yeah,
we were off to the races from there. From there, I moved down to Milwaukee, just to a bigger fight team, with a little bit more depth and coaches that I think were a little bit more committed overall. Um, and it wasn't long before I the first time I'd gone there was to a fight team practice, and there was a lot of guys there who were better than me, but I think I stood out to the coaches a little bit that they just knew that I was down to fight, and that I could swim in that room, but I wasn't gonna win every round, but that I belonged there training with those guys, and it wasn't long before they booked me a fight in Nebraska, and I won that one, and I was 1-0 and the other guy was 1-0. I TKO'd that guy in like a minute and a half. That was on Victory FC. It was a square cage. Um,
Whoa.
I to this day, dude, I wish I could go back and fight on that promotion. A square cage is badass because you can
That is
cut people off.
crazy, dude.
You can cut people off really well in
The
there.
angles, yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Um, from there, I had an amateur bout in Milwaukee against a 2-0 guy. I won a unanimous over him. Um, let's see. I fought Monatua Lemaire, who I believe is actually like Brian Ortega's cousin.
Okay.
And I ended up hitting him pretty good and then choking him out with a rear naked choke as well. I fought another guy who was like 8-1 up in Minnesota. I knocked him out in 26 seconds. And then I had one loss as an amateur. I got steamrolled. You can look it up on YouTube. I got steamrolled by Niall
Yeah.
Bartling. Yeah, that was a rough one for me, man. I was 6-0 and he was 4-0. But I weighed in at 202.
Yeah.
That was because that was a light heavyweight bout, and I think he was cutting from like the 220s, so
Oh,
just
geez.
he was a way bigger guy, and I my IQ for the fight was completely wrong. I thought I was going to lock horns and fight with another bull, because that was my style. Well, he was
Yeah.
just a big bull, so I should have really played the matador in that fight
Yeah.
and been a little smarter about it. Tried to maybe evade his onslaught more than trying to lock up with him and see who had the bigger muscles because
Yeah.
clearly it didn't play out in my favor. But there was something to be learned from that. There's going to be times that I fight guys who are better than me in that avenue of fighting, and I got to change the game plan a little bit then.
Hmm.
And then I capped my amateur career off by fighting like a 7-2 guy, Philip Aarons. That was on Caged Aggression. That's actually where I was supposed to fight last week, Saturday. Was for Caged Aggression again, which is an awesome regional show, man.
Hmm.
Mike Goodwin and his team really do some of the best regional promoting I've ever seen on that show. They do really well catering to the fighters. There's like fresh food right after you make weight. They got food there waiting for you. Mike is very good and responsive to all the fighters if they have any questions. Just very good at promoting it overall. So I was, obviously, for the short period that I found out I was gonna, someone else was gonna be fighting on Contenders. I still was really excited to go compete on Caged Aggression again, just because I was a former champion, or amateur champion on that promotion, and I knew how smoothly it was ran by Mike and his team. Um, so that was the end of my amateur career once I won that belt, and then I fought two kind of they were cans my first two pro fights, and then I fought Tristan Overvig on LFA for my third fight, and I feel like
Yeah.
that was the initial you're in the pro ranks now fighting him. So
Okay. It was
he's
kind of
a
your
good,
welcome to pro MMA.
yeah, he was a
Yeah.
good tough fighter, man. That was at 205 as well. I just had the better night that night.
So let me
So
ask you real quick. Well, first thing I'll ask you is, do you have a message for amateur fighters? Um, because after your loss, to that guy in the amateurs, it was a TKO. What was your thought process right after that? I mean, were you thinking about quitting, or like, were you good? You were no.
yeah, so both times I've lost now as an amateur and a pro, for the first couple days, I'm like, fuck this, I'm never doing it again,
Okay.
and then you get over that initial, rush of, um, what's the word for it? I just emotion that you're just not thinking straight. You're a little over emotional and pissed off, at all the work you put in and how, and it not playing out for you. But after a couple days, you settle down and come to your senses a little bit and understand that only one person can win when you get in there and there's two of you.
Yeah.
So, and I like the way referees will start off a lot of like the rules meetings and stuff. Like like, guys, there's 30 of you in here tonight. Only 15 are getting your hand raised. You know,
Yeah.
that's the truth of the sport. Only one guy can win. So when I lost as an amateur, it sucked. I didn't train for like a week, but about a week after that, once I recovered a little bit, I was right back in the gym. Um, and just had to get back on the horse, man.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. And then like when I lost as a pro, that was tough as well. I went into that fight with a decent rib injury, and so I did take a while after that fight. Thought about hanging it up, but even while I was thinking about that, still needed to heal up anyway.
Yeah.
It separated some rib cartilage, and so it definitely impacted my performance in the fight. I won't say that's why I lost. Ultimately I took the fight and I'm responsible for the loss at hand. But I would say that I didn't really get to use my full arsenal of tools. I didn't get to use everything in my toolbox going into that fight. And so it was a hard loss to take. Competing in Canada, that fight was up in Canada. Competing up in Canada was super fun, man. All the people, the promotion, the fans, everyone was super nice to me. Everything ran really smoothly.
Yeah.
I would go back there anytime. I don't know about living there, but I would definitely go compete there anytime.
Um,
So I took a good like 2.5 months after that fight,
okay.
before I was back in the gym, and I like did think about laying it down for a little bit after that loss. And ultimately, my teammate Wesley, who I actually took this last fight in place of because of an injury,
Yeah.
um, he was getting ready to fight Dylan Butka
Yeah.
on FA, and the coaches had reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, if you're feeling better, we'd really like to have you back in and help get Wesley ready for his match, and that was what I did. And then I got hooked on it again. So
Yeah. It's an addiction, huh?
yeah,
Let me okay, so we're gonna have to wrap up pretty soon.
sure.
Uh I guess my next question would be, what are you looking at the future? Like, so in the UFC, like, do you have any names maybe you're thinking about? Or do you have maybe go up to 205 again or stay at 185? What are the plans? Or are you just a company man where it's like anywhere they need me?
Yeah, I mean, it would really come down to I'm not interested in fighting at 205, not
Okay.
unless me and the other guy are both like 85ers and we kind of just want to leave the weight cut alone.
Yeah.
But guys like Sean Strickland, man, some of those, Dricus Duplessis, Pablo Costa, a lot of those guys walk around heavy, man. I only
Yeah.
walk around like maybe 210, 212 at my heaviest. Some of those
Yeah.
guys are walking around in like the upper 220s, which
Yeah.
is like good for them. The bigger you can be, the bigger you're going to be once all that weight is cut. Um, so I don't like making that big of that drastic of a cut. So if those are the top middleweights that are cutting down to 185, what are those light heavyweights cutting down to?
For
Uh,
sure.
so I'm not really interested in fighting at 205. Like I said, it would be a situational thing. Is the guy naturally smaller? You know,
Hmm.
um, what's his skill level at? Do we match up well against him? Those are all things I take into consideration with my team. And as far as future opponents, man, I'm just going to see what the UFC throws at us. I was dead uh, uh, honest and serious when I said I'd like one before the end of the year. Um,
Hmm.
but we'll see what happens. If they want to take their time and give me the right matchups and build me in a certain way, I'm all for that. But if a short notice opportunity comes up and it's a good matchup, we're going to take that too because I'm always in shape. I'm always fighting. I'm not necessarily always in peak camp shape, um,
Hmm.
but I'm never more than 5 or 6 days away from making weight. So I like being that guy that's ready and on call
Okay.
anytime.
On a dime, yeah.
And
Okay,
I know that looks good for the company too. So
yeah, for sure. Last thing I'll ask, you want to shout out your coaches real quick and any teammates that maybe helped you out because at the end of your fight you were pretty vocal about your team and about your
yeah,
coaches. Go ahead and shout them out.
yeah, and I mean every bit of that too, man. I'm a product of my gym environment and my family support at home. So yeah, man, my coaches, Jake Clip, Solo Acosta, and Zach Otto, man, I couldn't have done it without any of them. And then Dylan Diebitz, Brian Sullivan, and Wesley Schultz are all middleweights that I train with every day who will be in the UFC. I've got another two more good teammates that are fighting at 55 right now. My friend Jeremiah Huff is he's like 6 or 7-0 as an amateur now. He's going to be going pro pretty quick. And then my buddy Jordan Clark just won the caged aggression belt at 55.
Okay.
Those are two more guys that I think are definitely going to be a contender at some point. So
Awesome, man.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, I mean, Nick, I mean, I just gotta say thank you so much for this interview. I mean, you've been awesome, and I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
yeah, not a problem, man. It was cool talking with you.
Thank you.